Let me get the lights going.
I can't perform without the
I
lights.
told him.
Oh, you got to get me straight.
Yeah, we gotta make sure we right. Make sure this podium is right. Huh? You gotta unplug. You gotta plug it up first. You gotta keep the plug and everything.
Hey, they was jamming, man. They was praising.
All right. I see. Let's get it.
All right. Now we can go over some slides. All right. Today's lesson is titled Face to Face.
Oh, personal. Okay.
I will be reading the rules, so we will have none of that foolishness.
That's no fun.
It's okay. It's okay. After that last performance last week, I'm going to go ahead and just read them for us this week. We'll get back to the usual stuff next week. So rules that will be used for all lessons. Please keep your mic muted, except when asking or answering a question. Use the mic to speak. There is a feature on Zoom in the meeting room where you can raise your hand. If you have a question or statement, please use it. Also, here in the assembly, if you have a question or statement, raise your hand and speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you. All questions and answers and statements must be on the topic. You can only answer one time per question or statement. You have 60 seconds to ask or answer a question. If you pass your 60-second window, Caleb will mute you. For those that are in the room, you also have 60 seconds to ask or answer a question. If you go past 60 seconds, Caleb will flag you down. There are mics that will be passed around that can be used to ask or answer those questions. All statements in the room must be limited to 20 seconds. The microphones can be used to share with others that may not hear you online. So these rules are due to time in the recording of the lessons. These are live teachings. We must give the moray enough time to complete the lessons. This will be mixed with discussion to help build one another up. Please do not abuse the time. All right, the warning. Take the time to explain that this lesson and the lessons thereafter are not based on any one individual, either in this assembly, locally, or abroad. The lessons were not developed by myself alone. Yes, the Father has something, if not all, to do with it. If the lessons hit certain points that you feel or believe have something to do with you, then all praise to Yahuwah. Take that knowledge and apply the solution to your life. Do not take anything personal to the point that you miss the message that's being given to help solidify your salvation. All right? All right, quick review. So, last week we spoke about revealing the real you to your loved ones and how you should let them love the real you, flaws and all, right? So once we let our guards down, we can address the real issues and have a stronger relationship. So after the lesson, a few of us were talking at the table, and this particular example came up, so I figured I'd share it. So here's an example. So when he feels that he's getting heightened, a husband needs space to calm down and will often go on a drive to clear his mind and calm down. So honey, I'll be back about half an hour. I need time to calm down. He gets the keys and he heads out. When he gets back 20 minutes later, within the curfew, his wife is even more upset than before he left. And he can't figure out why. What he done did, right? He did not know that his wife is suffering from abandonment issues. So him leaving is actually the worst thing that he could do. But the problem is that he never knew this about her. He thought she was just being jealous or perhaps mistrusting, right? She never told him about these abandonment issues. So from his point of view, he was doing the right thing by avoiding a clash while he was angry. And now she just started tripping for no reason. So, him leaving to cool off wasn't wrong, right? But it was wrong for her and what she needs from a loved one. But it was wrong for her, not wrong in and of itself, right? So I don't want nobody to say, he said I couldn't take a ride. That's not the point, right? The problem is she never told him about the abandonment issues. But he does have a right to do what he needs to do to cool off, right? So her abandonment issues doesn't trump his need to go for a ride or get away for a moment. He has the right to be angry, but not sin, right? So they need to have an honest conversation and find a compromise. So here's a compromise they can come up with. He can take time to cool himself off, right? But he has to stay around the home to do it. She can't disturb him during this time. However, she can peek into the room or wherever he is, right? He might take a stroll on the lawn. He might chill out on the porch. But she has to be able to lay eyes on him when she needs reassurance. But the key to being able to find a compromise is direct communication, honest communication, and truth about what you are actually dealing with, right? So just wanted to recap from last week. So what's the best way to have these conversations? Somebody, he did see my slideshow before y'all got in. Face to face. All right, again, I don't do trick questions, right? So today's lesson is about dealing with each other face to face. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how to make all the pieces fit, right? So will these conversations always be easy to have face to face? Of course not, especially if we are giving in to our flesh. So when we have these conversations and confrontations, they must be based on righteousness, grounded in the word. So when we take ourselves out of it and see the situation from the Father's perspective instead of ours, then we can accept what we're hearing. Let's look at Proverbs 27:9-10, Mishle. Ointment and perfume gladden the heart, so one's counsel is sweet to his friend. Do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, and do not go into your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. So we look at the beginning there, 9. It says you're to go to your brother or sister, right? Why? Because the counsel is good, right? But remember, we all understand that counsel is not always pleasant to hear, but that doesn't give us an excuse to avoid bringing the counsel. It also doesn't give us an excuse from receiving the counsel, all right? Matthew 8:15-17. If your brother sins against you, go and convict him between you and him alone. If he hears you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not hear, take with you one or two more, that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word might be established. And if he refuses to hear them, say it to the assembly. And if he refuses even to hear the assembly, let them be to you like the nations and a tax collector, right? We all like those last couple parts, right? We're going to focus on the first part. If your brother sins against you, go and convict him between you and him alone. If he hears you, you have gained your brother. So the first thing you're going to do is go to your brother. Not complain about him behind his back or her back, not avoid the issue, but go to them directly. And also be mindful that when your brother does come to you, then you should hear what they have to say. Not with your own ears, but ears guided by the word. If we use our own ears, we're probably not going to hear what this person's saying to us. We're going to find every excuse not to hear it. We're going to focus on what they said, not how they said it, or how they said it versus what they said, and we're not going to get the message, right? We don't want to do that. When you're speaking with your brother, and he brings you the truth based on the word, hear him. This part I want you to focus on. Please, 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 do not just say you agree when you don't. This is not the time for the go along to get along. It's not what we need. We want to Shema, O Yisrael. As we know, Shema means that we're going to hear with intent. So that's what we should do with our brothers, right? We're not just hearing them and blowing them off and saying, yes, that we agree just for the sake of getting the situation over with, right? If the conversation takes a full hour to get to the resolution, then that's what we're going to do. But when we come to resolution, we're going to actually hear and be in agreement with what we're going to do from there going forward, right? All right, Devarim 22:1-4. When you see your brother's ox or your sheep straying away, you shall not hide yourself from them. Return them to your brother without fail. And if your brother is not near you, or if you do not know him, then you shall bring it to your own house, and it shall be with you until your brother seeks it, and then you shall return it to him. And so you do with his donkey, and so you do with the garment, and so you do with whatever your brother loses, which he has lost and you have found. You are not allowed to hide yourself. When you see your brother's donkey or his ox fall down on the way, you shall not hide yourself from them. Help him raise them without fail. So, safe to say this only applies to donkeys. And go ahead, Aki.
All right. So I was seeing if it was still going in a certain direction, but
You can always take it back there. Say what you got to say.
it's green.
You good?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, because I don't know if people ate gum or anything, or not. You know, the mic might be a little Might be a little rough. All right, can you hear me testing? Okay, so a couple of things. One is when for this counsel, as he was sharing earlier, and they go to their brother or if a sister goes to a sister, when they give that counsel, they should be focusing on what's going on with that particular person, because sometimes we can give counsel to a person we don't know the other side, and so the counsel that we're given is based off of a one-sided conversation. So if we're going to give proper counsel, we should either make sure that we're trying to counsel in a way to help that person process whatever they're going through. Second part of it is they got to be careful that that counsel does not supersede whatever, let's just say the head of the house says. The counsel then says this, and next you know, they absorb that counsel and try to implement that, but the head is not aware of this type of counsel. Okay, and I'll stop there. I have more, but I'll stop.
I'm sure you'll have more to add later. No worries. All right. So again, this is not just about sheeps and donkeys and stuff like that, right? So basically, your brother has any issue, whatever they have going on, if you recognize it, you're not allowed to turn your back on it and act like you don't see it. All right? You can't just pretend everything's okay. You can't hide your knowledge from him. You can't just tuck yourself away and be like, I'm not going to deal with that. He'll deal with that on his own. You got to go to him, right? Face to face. You got to go to him and try to resolve the issue. Pretending not to notice is not the righteous thing to do. So that means two things, right? That means that when you recognize it, even last week I had people raise hands on who didn't like confrontation, right? Quite a few hands went up. But your dislike of confrontation doesn't absolve you from going to help your brother or sister out. If you don't like confrontation, being on the receiving end, that doesn't mean that you get to avoid them when they come to you. You still have to deal with the situation. Go ahead.
What if you know that that person is not approachable at that time?
In the moment, sure. Let some time go by. You want to find the
Okay.
right time. But you can't just be like, I was going to give them time and 6 months go by. I was going to give them time, 2 years and went by. Right? It depends on the situation.
Okay.
But again, you don't want to just use that as an excuse not to get involved. Because again, we all have things that we're dealing with. We all have lives. We have stuff that comes up on ourselves. I'm going to give them a couple weeks to cool off. Now, I got something I got to deal with. Do I really take the time to go back and deal with it? Now I got to focus on what I got to handle, right? So if you wait too long, you're going to miss the opportunity and you're not going to be useful. And then your brother or sister is still in a bad spot, right? All right, so again, you got to go to your brother. We all know this verse, right? 5:23-24. If then you bring your gift to the slaughter place and there remember that your brother holds whatever against you, leave your gift there before the slaughter place and go. First make peace with your brother and then come and offer your gift, right? So in both situations, we see that we got to go to our brother and deal with the situation. Go ahead, Aki.
My question is, what is the gift that you're leaving at the altar?
That's a whole other lesson.
All right, so when you think about leaving the gift, if you're going to the altar to Yah to give him praise, that's a gift. So you got to think about it. Your praise have to be on hold so that when you come to him, your heart is clean. So even your praises to the Father, he said, you know what? I need to get this right. I need to clear my heart, my mind, because when I come to the Father, I don't want to have any leaven in my heart, or trying to think we can bypass certain things and just talk to Yah.
Now, with that being said, that still leads us to what we're talking about, right? You got to go to your brother first, right? How many of us pray every day? That's not a lot of hands, right? How many of us will offer him praise of some sort every single day? How many of us are doing that every single day and going to get it right with your brother every single day? Right? It's a good answer to say in public. It's nice. It's all right. I appreciate it. All right, but the point being that it's an ongoing process and you have to be continuous. And it's not like, well, we got that one thing squared away. When you see something else, guess what? You got to deal with that thing too, right? But literally, think about how often you're in the Father's presence. But the requirement for him to receive you in that presence is to take care of this. That means if you had an issue with somebody for your 9 o'clock prayer time, you resolved it. What if something came up between now and the next time you're going to pray? You just got to go back and deal with that one too, right? It's a constant process. It's a constant process. All right. Let's look at 2 John. Having much to write to you, I did not wish to do so with paper and ink, but I expect to come to you and speak face to face so that our joy might be complete. The children of your chosen sister greet you. Amen, right? So again, he had a lot to say, but he couldn't get it all out. I could write you a tome. I could write you volume after volume after volume. It's not going to be as effective as if I come see you face to face. So we want to be effective in what we're doing, right? You can't text. I got a slide about that one too. We got a microphone.
Okay. So what if you went to talk to your brother? He didn't want to hear you right then at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew you weren't going to get nowhere if you tried to talk to him at that moment. And then 4 hours later, he wound up dying. Now, how do you get praise to the Father once you know that this guy you've been trying to help died on you? You know, you can't get that. You can't help him. You wishing you could help him.
I'll let you answer first because I probably got to say something
All right,
not
so
too nice.
a couple of things. One is that if he passed away, remember the objective was he needed time to process. So if he died in the process, then the only one is going to be the righteous creator that's going to judge at that moment. But if there's an argument going on and he's not receiving because of where he is, wherever that, or she is, and then she goes away, then the only reason why that didn't happen was because they wouldn't be able to receive or hear you at that moment. So that part becomes, Elohim becomes the judge. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? You yourself is still alive, so you have to say, well, Father, I pray that I leave it in your hands because you're a righteous judge. And then we let it go, be at peace with it.
But you did your part, but just like the first example we gave, right? He's he has the right to go take that drive, right? That's the way he had to process it. I'm not in the spot to hear it right now. I'm going to get into that space. Now, again, we all got a time to go. It was his time to go. That's not for you to bear. I don't want everyone to say, "Oh, such and such died. It's a terrible thing." That's what's going to happen to all of us. It's not always a tragic thing when it happens. That's a whole side lesson, but you did your part, right? And like you said, the person just wasn't in the time to do it. Because in your heart, you were going to give them that space. You were going to try to make another effort. You just didn't get the opportunity. So there's nothing that you did wrong in that area. But again, face-to-face and direct interaction with people is a lot more effective than the other methods that we try to use. Text messages. Now, two ways to look at this, right? How often do we hide behind a text message? Or we hide behind the group text, right? Now, you're in this group chat, right? Now, you know that this meme you're about to share, this reel you're about to share, is directed for one particular person. But you're going to send it to them direct. You're going to put it in the group chat and hope they get it. That's not cool, right? We're not going to do that. But how many of us are guilty of doing that? Oh, now nobody wants to handle, right? Okay. I recognize. All right. Now, again, it's not always a terrible thing, right? Some of us just are adverse to confrontation, right? So we just don't want to go that way. But again, we got to get past that in certain areas, okay? All right. Sometimes it may seem easier to communicate that way. But remember that communication is a two-way street, right? It's not just, oh, I told you. But they got to receive the communication that you're giving, right? So text and written text can often be misinterpreted, especially when it's dealing with feelings and emotions, right? So when you're talking to someone face to face, you can get a read of how they're approaching you. You can get a read of how they're receiving it. You may need to repeat some stuff like, oh, they really just didn't get what I said, or perhaps they misinterpreted what I said. When you're dealing with each other face to face, you're going to be able to recognize that a whole lot quicker and say, okay, I need to say this a different way, right? Versus, oh, I sent them the text. They must have been okay with it because they chose not to text back. They guess they had no problem with what I said. No, they just didn't want to argue right now. That doesn't mean they received what you said. Go ahead.
I was actually I'm guilty on that because I was talking to Moray and yeah, I was talking to Moray and he was saying that that's not a good way to communicate. You gotta let people know. You just can't put that out there and don't respond because I'm still responsible for it. I knew it. Things were not right, and text is a way of escaping than dealing with it. And so, yeah, that's not a good way. I yield.
But do we actually get to escape through that text?
I did.
You thought you did. You thought you did, right? But if it wasn't resolved, you haven't escaped. You escaped the moment. But it's a false sense of security, right? But the issue still wasn't resolved, right? It's like that 3-year-old that comes in. They're scared of the boogeyman, so they hide under the blanket. As if the boogeyman don't know they're there, right? You can't be 3-year-olds with this stuff. The issue is still there, whether you choose to jump under the blanket or not, right? All right, caution. Next example, it's about the haters, right? The hater warning. So I gave you the warning up front. Sometimes we do have people who try to get in the way of us doing what's right, right? We don't like those people. We don't like haters, right? But it happens. All right, this is an example. Y'all didn't go, ooh, ah, you know how long it took me to get the slide to do that? Man. You know how my stuff be all playing up there? They got fire and all that stuff. I got a little swoosh and ain't nobody say nothing. That's all right. And I'm going to say it to your face that'll get home and get my feelings hurt. But anyway. All right. Oh, I'm hating y'all real bad right now. It's all right. I should make y'all do it again. But it's okay. All right. So I wrote to the assembly, Diotrephes, who loves to be the first among them, did not receive us. So again, he tried the written communication, right? But it wasn't received. So if I come, I shall call to mind his works which he does, babbling against us with wicked words. And not satisfied with that, he himself does not receive the brothers, and forbids those who wish to, putting them out of the assembly. Beloved ones, do not imitate the evil, but the good. The one who's doing good is of Elohim, but he who is doing evil has not seen Elohim. Demetrios has a good witness from all, and from the truth itself. And we also bear witness, and you know that our witness is true. Again, I had much to write, but I do not wish to write to you with pen and ink. But I expect to see you shortly, and shall speak face to face. Peace to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends by name. All right? Stop it. All right. So I wrote the assembly, but Diotrephes, who loves to be the first among us, he does not receive us. So if I come, I shall call to mind his works which he does, and babbling against us with wicked words, and not satisfied with that. He himself does not receive the brothers, and forbids those who wish to do, putting them out of the assembly. Sounds like a hater to me. We're trying to get some stuff going on. I'm trying to come talk to y'all and interact and get my message across. But that message might point out what he got going on wrong. So he probably don't want that message to get out. So what's he going to do? He blocks the message, right? And not only that, okay, you want to talk to him? You can just get on out. Go all the way away from us, right? Probably not a good thing. So he avoided the truth, interfered with those seeking the truth. He didn't want to have him hear out because he disagreed, basically, right? And his presence would make him remember things he's not proud of. He didn't want that smoke, right? Not only does he avoid him, but anybody who's willing to hear the other side, they got to go to. It's probably not a great way to be, right? Sounds definitely like a hater. Beware of someone from the outside that tries to interfere with you coming together to work things out. They only want you to hear their side of things, right? They don't want the actual truth. They only want pieces, right? And they want to control what pieces come together, which they can do if y'all stay apart from each other, right? Because you can shoot your text off, but guess what? Now they done shot a text. You done sent your little thing to the group chat. Now they sent something to the group chat to contradict it, right? Easy to do when we stay apart from each other, right? They manipulate the situation by using division. They are a hater. They want y'all to stay apart. So how do we get around that? Again, this is how you get around it. I had much to write to you, but I do not wish to write to you with pen and ink, but I expect to see you months from now. Oh, shortly, right? And we're going to speak face to face, right? I know he wants to block my letters getting through. He don't want y'all to hear this. Some people are like, oh, well, Diotrephes was in the way, so I ain't going to write it no more. I said, you know what? I ain't going to write it. I'm going to go run up on y'all real quick. I'm not going to let this thing linger, right? So that's what we're supposed to do, especially when you see somebody that always got to weigh in on their opinion and is really in the way. You can kind of tell this person never talks to me, but now all of a sudden they want to shoot me these random texts. Why are they involved all of a sudden? Let me go directly to my brother and sister and work it out, right? I love y'all. All right. Appreciate it. Y'all learn so quick. Ooh, hey. All right. 1 Corinthians. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought as a child. I reasoned as a child. But when I became a man or I matured, right, I did away with childish matters. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know as I also have been known. And now belief, expectation, and love remain. These three, but the greatest of these is love. But what I want to show here is the contrast between the child and maturity, right? Let's associate the dimness with the child. As we mature, we see things clearly. So dim as a child, but then we mature, and then how do we see things? Face to face, right? Knowing in part, we only see things dimly, but then we see face to face to get the whole picture, and then it brings clarity, right? Think of when you had to work through an issue with someone and you only had secondhand information, or third or fourth or fifth, right? But then when y'all meet face to face, new information comes out and changes everything. You find all the stuff that you thought you heard or they were telling you wasn't none of it true. Or they told the front half of the message, but left the second half out. So you don't have that clear picture, right? But had you not come face to face, you wouldn't have got it. And then the new information comes out, it changes everything. You get a whole new perspective on what you're dealing with. All right? All right. So let's follow the examples we find in Torah. Point being, if they can speak to our Creator, right? They can speak face to face with the very creator of the universe, who we have a healthy and righteous fear of. If they can speak to him face to face, shouldn't we be able to speak with each other face to face? I mean, I love y'all, but I ain't afraid of y'all. Stop it. I am afraid of Yahuwah, but I definitely want to speak to him face to face. So if I can speak to him face to face, then I should be able to speak to y'all face to face, right? Go ahead.
And, since we're talking about face to face, a lot of times the Father has a message within that person that you might be speaking face to face with, but the problem is we can't see Yah's message because of the person you don't like. I'll just say it that way. The person that you don't like, you can't receive the message. But if that same message came from somebody else that you do like, then you can receive the message. So even in our processing, we need to recognize that even if I may not like this person at that time, I want to see if Yah is using this person to help me.
Mm-hmm. Again, back in the beginning, whose ears are we supposed to use, ours or his? Right? The Ruach has to be involved in this, right? You have to be dealing it through his point of view, not ours. Good? Okay. All right. Shemot 33:11. Thus Yahuwah spoke to Moshe to his back. Face to face, right? How? As a man speaks to his friend. Do we speak to our friends face to face? That's what we're trying to get to, right? We're trying to get to that point that when we're speaking with each other, we get in the habit of speaking face to face, right? And he will return to the camp, but his servant Joshua, son of Nun, a young man, did not leave the tent. All right? So he speaks face to face. And that face to face is the exact same way that a man would speak to his friend. That's how we're supposed to speak to each other as well. All right, so on the next slide, we're going to see a conversation between the two of them. But I want you to notice how comfortable Moshe is in this conversation with Yahuwah. He's confronting him with his problem. You told me to do this, but you didn't tell me who would help. Moshe made his problem known directly to the Father. He just told him, this is what I'm dealing with. And his directness was rewarded with favor. He trusts Yahuwah enough to be honest and unashamed about what he needs from him. So again, the way that they speak is the way that we should speak, right? So we should be kind of passive with what our needs are in a situation. Or should we be honest, direct, and upfront? Now, and I got to work on this myself. Y'all know me. So there's ways to go about doing that. But however, when you're having a conversation, you have to be honest. Don't just say you agree with something when you really don't. And also be open and direct and explain why you don't agree. We're not disagreeing just for the sake of being difficult, right? No, I don't see it that way. That doesn't make sense to me. Explain how you see it. Oh, I get it. Or, oh, I still don't get it. Tell me again. That's where a lot of us mess up, right? We just want to act, oh, yeah, I got it. No, you didn't. Just tell them you need to hear it some more. You need it a different way, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Because in the end, his directness, because he was direct, and he didn't try to hide from him, he ultimately got the reward. So when we're having these direct conversations, we're going to get the benefit of those conversations. All right, so here's the conversation. 33, 12 through 15, and then it ends in 17. Well, this particular section. Moshe said to Yahuwah, see, you were saying to me, bring up this people, but you have not made known to me whom you would send with me, even though you said, I know you by name and found favor in my eyes. And now, please, if I have found favor in your eyes, please show me your way and let me know you so that I find favor in your eyes. And consider that this nation is your people. And he said, my presence does go, and I shall give you rest. And he said to him, if your presence is not going, don't lead us up from here. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, even this word you have spoken, I shall do, for you have found favor in my eyes, and I know you by name. So Moshe was pretty bold and upfront in this conversation, right? He didn't hold anything back. That's the same way that we should speak to each other, right? Like, look, you said this, but I don't really see it just yet. You said you're going to tell me, but how am I getting my help? The same boldness that he has in this conversation, the same directness. Does Yahuwah have any question about what Moshe wants? No, he knows exactly where the hang-up is. How many of us have had a conversation, we thought we were resolving something, but it finds out we really didn't know what the actual issue was? Either because we didn't ask the right questions, or the persons we asked didn't really want to tell us the answer. They wanted to just go along, get this conversation with us over as quickly as possible. Let me shoot this text back real quick so I can escape. But you didn't really get anything out of the conversation because you weren't open, you weren't honest, and you weren't direct face-to-face with each other. How many people here have a face that tells on them every time? I know I do, right? I don't play poker at all. I told y'all during COVID that mask saved my job at least 7 times. That's just how it is. But can somebody see that through a text message? Absolutely not, right? When you're face-to-face and being direct with each other, you're going to know, and you're going to get information that you just wouldn't get. Well, this is what I said to Kanan. What do you think? How do you think he took it when I told him that? Lamon's going to be like, I don't know. You should ask him, right? You should. Oh, I definitely would see your face. You would know. You know. That's why we get along so good. Emojis. They do have emoji for almost everything, but not that one. All right. All right. So just stop giving away my secrets. All right. So a couple takeaways, right? So these are the ones that I thought of, but I'm going to ask y'all some things that y'all took away as well. So you want to be honest in your wants and your needs. This is one of my favorites. Please do not seek to placate one another. Be truthful in what you can and cannot adhere to when coming to a compromise. Because the other person is going to expect you to hold up your end of the bargain. This is the agreement that we made, and this is what I'm holding you to. And the moment that you don't do that, you're going to have a whole other conflict to figure through. All right? Do not avoid issues. When you see something, address it. Right? deal with each other face to face, right? So one to one, and have the tough conversations. And also remember that the word has the final word. Whatever scripture tells you to do, whatever the Torah and righteousness deems in that moment, that's what you're going to follow. That's the same example he gave with that your counsel can't trump the head of the household's counsel. That's Torah, that's righteousness, right? So keep those things in mind as you're dealing through these. What you got up?
So one of my takeaways is if if that person asks a question, I would rather that person answer the question first instead of trying to explain it away. Why not just answer the question, and then once you get the answer, then if you want to expound on your answer, sure. But to not answer, because they'll say it isn't the answer because they're explaining it, that's not, to that person, it may not be an answer. It might be you justifying your behavior or why you're doing this, but it didn't answer anything for that particular person. He just needs an answer, or for myself, I would say, an answer first and then explain.
When you're having these conversations, just be mature and recognize the difference between a response and an answer. If I ask you what's 2 + 2 and you tell me purple, don't say I answered your question. You didn't. You responded to what I said, but you didn't truly answer the question. And don't be on the defensive. Oh, you're already trying to explain away. Like, I might accept what you said the first time. I may not need the explanation. Just be truthful about what the answer is. All right. What did somebody else take away from this? That's this week and last week. Go ahead, Akoti. Go ahead. You gonna duck and hide like I ain't gonna see you?
Okay, I'm starting out, Caleb. My takeaway from last week in this way is, especially what Maury said, a lot of times we're not dealing with the real issue, so therefore we can't answer the current event at hand. We're answering based on our feeling and not the real truth behind how you're feeling. So it goes back to being honest with yourself and having an honest communication. That's all.
Absolutely. Go ahead, okay.
I guess since no one else, I can keep going. So let me give you another one. When you're having, let's just say, disagreements or trying to understand something, if you said it and a person repeats what you said, you should accept what you said. Now, if that person is misunderstanding what you said, then that's the opportunity for that person to elaborate more as to what that person means.
Right.
But it shouldn't be viewed as an attack, because if I said it, I said it.
Right.
And you shouldn't add to their words neither.
Yeah, we're gonna take what people say to us at face value, right? So be mindful of the difference between I didn't say that versus I didn't mean that. Because if I heard you say it and you come to me, but I didn't say that, oh, we're gonna have some issues. Now, if you just say I said that, but that's not what I meant, or you took it the wrong way, then say that. But the whole I didn't say that and try to backtrack like you didn't say it, not gonna work. Not gonna work. Ima, I saw you reaching. You got something to say?
I'm one of those persons that I'm not going to say I don't like conflict, but I will step away and just get myself together. And then if I do need a little counseling, I seek out that counselor before I say anything. But you're going to guarantee I'm going to say something.
Absolutely. All right, anybody else? I should put one of our quote-unquote visitors. Y'all ain't visitors, but I'm going to call y'all visitors because y'all here in person. Should put one of y'all on the spot. Go ahead, sis.
Okay. I'm just going to say a personal takeaway. I've learned more to listen than to respond, because sometimes you may be missing something in the communication, and then there are times where you can see that the communication may be coming from a different place than the actual event that's taking place at that moment. And you might be able to help whomever that you're talking to address whatever is going on up here, and then you all can better communicate with what's actually happening in the present.
No, just be mindful that this entire scenario is talking about believer with believer. So you kind of got to put that fence down, that wall down when people come to you, and give them the benefit of the doubt that they're coming to you for a righteous reason. And if you do that, it kind of lets you hear things a little differently than if this worldly person's coming at you or your boss is coming at you. Don't put those same walls up when dealing with each other. Go ahead, Akeem.
I was trying to follow, if Shemaiah can continue on, I was just trying to follow more she was sharing.
Sure, examples, elaborate.
Oh,
whatever.
I know this is not on your initial rules, but so let me share with you why. I give you because she might have a whole different understanding.
That's what we're here for, right?
Right. So sometimes people can not respond, and that creates a problem. They could be listening, but not responding, and it can make the person that's not saying anything okay, but that person on the other side, it may make them not okay. But I think she was sharing about maybe listening to see how a person can help in that way, but they still would need to give a response. But I wasn't, that's my words. I just want to make sure I was hearing.
Is that the kind of example you were giving?
Yeah, you give a response. A response is always given. You're just listening, because if, let's say that you go to a person because that person has, you think that person may have an issue with you. Okay, it's best to listen so that you can try to hear what could be possibly going on, if there was an actual offense, if it was a assumed offense, to listen and then talk, discuss whatever is happening at that moment, but listen. Because you might be able to help that person to process something different than the actual event, because it may not be the actual event. Because in my experience, a lot of times when I'm talking to someone, it may not be the actual thing that they think is happening. It's something that's stemming. Because I know even with myself, I can say that, like, why did I respond like that? Why did I think that? Why did I act like that? Why did I do that? And usually it's stemming from something else. So
That's another piece to it too, right? Because we're talking about direct and honest confrontation and communication, right? The difference between confrontation and a conflict. Not every confrontation has to be a conflict, right? But if you've had this discussion with somebody and even y'all think y'all resolved it, right? But then you realize that you gave something that truly didn't represent what you wanted it to, then go back and let that person know. It's okay to say, I kind of interpreted it this way, but now I'm thinking I've seen it a little bit different. Go back and continue the conversation. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead.
I have a question. So a little bit further back, you were talking about, like, if someone says for you to reword something, for you to take the time out to basically reword it, not get frustrated. What if that person says like 3 or 4 times reword it? At that moment,
Right.
do you just like, okay, everybody pause so that everybody can, like, you know what I'm saying, kind of like regroup? Because if I said it one time and I have no other way to explain it, then how does that work?
All right. Well, his hand shot up real fast.
Oh yeah, I do
I'm
it all the time.
gonna let him try first.
I do it
and then
all
I'll
the
add my 2
time.
cents.
All right. So sometimes I love rewording things. That's why I'm just going to answer from this perspective. Sometimes I reword it. If I reword it 3-4 times, they still didn't get it, I switch it and start asking questions to see how they're receiving it. Because sometimes rewording it is still not catching for them. So whatever they're not catching, but then you start asking certain questions, and based off of their answer, you can tell then further how that conversation would go. Or you just get a witness.
What you gonna say? Go ahead. Add it for the rest of us, please.
Just land back and just the questioning helps you to figure out how to craft the response that they'll understand it better.
Yep.
The way they answer the question, say, okay, I got your way of thinking now, so I can respond to that.
Yeah, I'll speak for myself. Y'all know me. Patience isn't really my strong point. I've gotten better. Still working on it though. But once you're around someone and you've had deep conversations with someone for a while, you kind of know whether they truly didn't get it or they just trying to play games. And I'm not saying that y'all got to sit here and play the game with them, the verbal gymnastics for 6 hours. But if they honestly don't get it, then you are obligated to try to put in a way that they can. But again, and you'll recognize the difference after a while. Somebody else going to say something? Okay. All right, a couple closing verses. Matthew 10, 34, 39. Do not think that I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. He who has found his life shall lose it, and he that has lost his life for my sake shall find it. You look at Hebrews 4, 12, 13, right? For the word of Elohim is living. Who's the word of Elohim? Yahushua, right? Okay, that's the tie-in, right? The word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and ruach and of joints and the marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all are naked and laid bare before the eyes of him with whom is our account, right? So a closing thought. So when you meet with each other, bring those swords that we just read about. Separate your false self from your true self. Lose your old self for the sake of your relationships with each other and with our Father. All right. Any questions? Uh-oh, your face got a question. See, we're talking about the face, right? Say it to my face. Don't be asking questions in the car like, why you say that? Asking that. Go ahead. Just start.
Okay, this is the reason why. It's a question, a statement, and a whole bunch of stuff mixed in between, right? Okay. So, no, it's not emotions. It's, okay, when I came into the walk, all right, I was very straightforward with it was if you said it, I did it, I believed it. If everything that I personally would do or say, it would always be, okay, the Father looking at me and how I'm portraying myself to this person that I'm talking to. But a lot of the times when we interact, and I'm just thinking, as we interact, it is what all about me at this moment in this conversation, and you just, whatever you said to me or whatever. And at some point, do we, as we're talking to our brother or our sister, is the Father's word and how we're portraying ourselves to be unified with one another in the forefront of our mind? And I'm not going to just think a certain way of this person or that person or how this person is doing or what this person is doing. We're just concentrating on fulfilling the Father's word with one another. Now, offenses can occur because a person can do something, like say something or do something that they didn't intend, because we're human, we're walking in this flesh. But to always think differently, and here's a problem, there's a problem, here's a problem. Is there, I'm trying to really bring this out, like, my thoughts are, and I really just want to know, am I right or wrong? My thoughts are we just supposed to, as we're interacting with one another, the Father's word and what he says that we are supposed to be within ourselves, we've gotten all this recovery done, and we're just talking to one another authentically. Not saying, again, that fleshly things wouldn't happen, but we're always interacting with one another authentically. It's when we start bringing things from here and there and everywhere else is when the problems start to occur. Yes.
You want to keep him in the forefront of any of these conversations. But eventually, like you said, your for example, is when you first came into the walk, right? But as that becomes your life, that's actually what you do automatically, is look at things through his perspective. When you first get here, you actually have to consciously train yourself to get in that mode, right? But once you've been doing it for years after year after year, that's kind of like the default. Like hopefully the world shouldn't be your go-to, right? You should default to how Yahuwah wants you to do it. And then you might get distracted by the world's way, but the default eventually will become the way he wants to do it. Now, you also have to keep that in mind that if you know it's going to be a contentious situation, you don't want to just walk in blind, right? Father, deal with my heart. I want this to be about you, not about me. You want to speak to him first before you go into this conversation, especially if you know that it's going to be potential conflict involved. You got your, I see it's all over your face, man. I know you got something to say. Okay. Thinking because you got something you want to say. I'll give you time. I'm not going to end until you share it with us, though. Because I'm anxious to see what you got to say. It's going to be for the table? So I'm going to do just like this week I started with the table. Next week, I'm going to share what he told me at the table. All right, does anybody else have anything? Oh, we got a hand. Who is that? Oh, Travis, what you got?
The question is, if this is for the walk or people within the walk, does this affect situations that have to do with individuals outside the walk? Like, say, for example, family members who are outside the walk, or coworkers that we may have a conflict with, or we may have misunderstandings with. Does the same teachings apply? And I guess the sub question to that is, does it affect or does Yahuwah, does Abba look at us in a certain way if we don't do these steps with people outside the walk?
All right, so I hear you. Yes, you're to be the same with him, right? Because you're his emissary, you're his light. When I said that, when I phrased it about us, this being about believers, that means the willingness to accept it. So you're still going to be you, just be mindful that they may not see things the same way you will. But your habit of going directly and being up front and dealing with things, you should have that regardless of anybody. Because then you might even convict them. Now, they may eventually become a believer. But you can't change because of them. So your standard is your standard. Your behavior patterns are your behavior patterns. Your willingness to be upfront and direct stays with everyone. And they may not receive it the same way because they're not in the walk, but that doesn't change how you deal with situations.
So thank you.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Any other questions? All right, let us prepare our hearts for prayer.
All right. All hearts and minds clear. Baruch Hashem Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam. Torah Yahuwah once again for the lesson that you have given us, Yahuwah, to give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts to understand how we should operate with one another, how we are to be a light to others for the expansion of your kingdom, to be doers of your word and not just hearers. We thank you, Abba Yahuwah, for the clarity. We thank you, Yahuwah, for the questions, for the answers, that people are actually searching out and trying to understand what you would have us to do and to walk in your Ruach, to walk after Mashiach Yahusha. We thank you, we praise you, exalt you, and magnify you. Thank you for the people that are here, safe travels to and fro from where they have to go. Thank you, Abba Yahuwah, for the immersion. Thank you, Abba Yahuwah, for the food about to receive and the hands that prepared it. May it be a nourishment to our bodies. We baruch your Kodesh name, and we say Hallelujah in the name of Yahusha. Amen.
All right. We're going to have a Hebrew class today. Hallelujah.